Hello everyone and welcome to episode 56 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. To catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice. Listen in the description below. I'm your host, GM, and overseer of Podcast of Five Rings, Obsidian, joined tonight, finally, once more. He has returned. The wall that will not fall, Tetsuo.
Somebody's got to make sure the Shadowlands don't overrun that damn wall.
Well, we were joking that you had fallen, finally, once and for all. The wall will not fall. The wall will fall once and for all. Hey, man. Stuff happens. Onis happen.
Can.
The Dark Fortune Duelist meta.
What's up?
And the Resident Wildcard Mao.
Yo.
So yeah, we're all back.
Woo! The band's back together.
Yeah, the boys are back in town. What's
from Yaz?
So real quick, Ted, since we didn't get to hear from you, what game are you most excited from? That was in E3. What are you most looking forward to?
I don't know.
Were you disappointed by E3 this year?
I wouldn't say I was disappointed, because to be totally honest, I've never been one to really watch it. In fact, I think last year was the first time I really sat down and watched most of the panels. But I don't know, I tend to get hyped up either before or after E3, so like I'm already pretty hyped about Anthem. I'm pretty excited about a few games that I'm interested in, but I don't know what.
Oh yeah, did you see all the Assassin's Creed stuff?
I didn't. I haven't looked at that yet.
They're gonna be there's gonna be more first. What was it called? No, I forget the name. There's more of the alien stuff in this one. First.
Precursors. The precursors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly, like, I think that's what my thing about Assassin's Creed is. I love to see how they fix.
I've never been interested in that series, and I really want to play Odyssey.
Well, now they've gone even more RPG with it.
I think the battles look cool too. That's just me. So, shall we get into topics?
Yeah.
Matt is really excited to talk about his, so I'm gonna let him start out.
Hold on a second, I gotta put. No, wait, hold on. Stall for time. I gotta put songs in the background. No, I gotta put on the pillows.
Be done in post.
No one's gonna hear him unless you put your phone up.
But I need to know. I gotta listen to it.
Or I
the
can
pillows
play
are
them.
amazing. So if you know what the pillows are, you probably know what my topic is going to be. Because who could think the pillows without Fooly Cooly?
Fooly Cooly.
Fooly Cooly. We gotta talk about Fooly Cooly. But really, is Fooly Cooly really Fooly Cooly, or did you just Cooly for Fooly? I ended up watching Fooly Cooly, or FLCL, for, I guess, those who wouldn't know the name by the name, recently, and man, I rewatched it, and
What is Fooly Cooly, Meta?
I'm not telling you what Fooly Cooly is. Not for the audience's sake, nobody. If you don't know what Fooly Cooly is, get your head out of the ground and go watch it. So I seriously got the inspiration to watch it up. I was kind of just looking for a good anime to watch.
It's Gainax, baby.
And yeah, and I don't know, like I'm a little bit of like kind of disenfranchised with some of the animes that are coming out recently, and I'm not looking forward to really anything. So I was like, I want to watch something that I watched earlier on that I thought was really good. I haven't seen in a while. I saw Fooly Cooly, and I was like, that's it. And for those of you who don't know what Fooly Cooly is, Fooly Cooly was an anime that was made back in 2000 when time itself had just started, I assume. And it was a six-part series. It was done by the studio Production IG and Gainax. And it was just original video animation. There was no manga that's based off of. There's no light novel that it's based off. Believe it or not, they just decided to get some money together and make a show. And crazy. And the story is very simple in premise. It is essentially a coming of age story, which kind of follows this young boy about 12 years old, Naota.
I think that's his name. I can't remember. Naota.
I can't really remember the name of it either.
Naota Nandaba.
Yeah, it's
Naota.
Nandaba. Which I don't think they really ever say his last name. But he's essentially a 12-year-old boy who lives kind of in a very boring suburban life, who is suddenly kind of tossed into this wacky scenario by Haruko
Yeah, after he gets hit by a girl with pink hair on a Vespa.
at a Vespa with her guitar.
Yeah.
And she does it twice.
And then there's a robot who shows up with a TV
it comes
head.
out of his head.
Yeah, it comes out of his head, and they fight a lot of things, and he's kind of got like guns and hands, and there's a giant.
It's very
iron.
esoteric.
Yeah, it's all over the place, and it was very wacky, but it was incredibly good. It's action, comedy, science fiction, all kind of splattered together in this wonderful, if odd, coming of age story that just kind of hits on so many points. That doesn't always make sense, and I don't want to get too deep into it just yet, but there was a lot of parts of it that just really were really lovable. And having watched it back then and having it watched it now, I gotta say this thing still holds up. But like, what about like when did you guys see this thing? Did you see it when it first came out, or
Yeah, Toonami.
I
Back
saw
in
when
the
it
day.
first came
Or
out.
Adult Swim, I guess technically.
Yeah, it would be Adult Swim. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that you went back to watch this because I recently rewatched it about a month and a half ago with my wife who had never seen it before.
I mean, it's a short rewatch.
That is about the time that I went back and rewatched it.
Yeah, you can knock it out real quick.
Oh yeah,
Like,
you can.
like
This is
2.5-ish hours.
It's 2.5.
first
It's literally a
saw it
movie's
in,
time.
like 2011.
Oh, wow.
Maybe before that.
Wow.
10, 9, I don't know, somewhere around there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one of my
it would have
buddies showed
aired
it to
over
me.
here for the first time in 2013 or 2003. I mean,
Yeah,
because I
it would have
believe it's
aired
English airing
Yeah,
date.
it was also like right as I was getting into anime, like more seriously, and it was one of the first one. It was like one of my buddies who's not like super in anime randomly loves it. It's like his favorite anime, and he got me to watch it. It was a little bit too weird for me at first, so I went back and watched it years later when I became more of a fan of anime. And I still find it kind of meh personally, and I think it's really overrated. But I'm also not the biggest Gainax fan, so
Well, you're dead to me immediately.
it's a very Gainax show.
And
like-
end this podcast right now, Oz. We cannot talk.
I don't
anymore.
hate it. I just think it's like
I'm cutting you
okay.
off.
I have a question for you, Meta. When I
What's
was gone, why did you let the taint in to destroy our obs that we
I
let?
don't know. I thought I did a good job, but I guess even the most honorable of us can fall.
beast.
He did. He gave his name to an Oni. I'm sorry.
That taint's always been there because.
Well, my name is
He
Obsidian,
told me.
so there you
he
go.
told me he didn't like Fully Cooley practically when we first
Yeah, a long
came
time
up
ago.
very
Wow.
early.
So this has been there from the start. I
Yeah.
can't believe
Mouse
I've let you
known.
so close in my life. Wow. Why didn't you say anything?
That's how the taint works. You
More
let it so
entertaining
close
this
and then it
way.
strikes.
This
But
fall
no.
could be even greater if I let him
No,
grow.
it's a very well like produced, like it has all the
Yeah,
production
so-
values of a very good Gainax show. The animation's
Yeah.
really good. The fight stuff is cool. We'll get to the music later, but the music's my favorite part. And that stuff's all good. It's just a little bit like too random, and like there's the through line of the series is hard to follow. And I don't
you know
know.
what? That's actually a lot. I've actually read some reviews on it as well, and that's what a lot of people said. It was very confusing to watch. Some people have recommended even watching it a second time, just because you kind of do need to rewatch it. At least for some people, anyway. To really pick up on everything. But that's kind of what I actually wanted to get into a little bit. Is that's kind of what makes it a little bit beautiful, because it focuses around adolescence, and going that kind of almost that very odd, sometimes confusing to some. Other people are very straight with it, whatever you want to take for it, but generally considered to be a confusing and tumultuous time in one's life where you're trying to kind of find your place. And the anime in and of itself, the whole show is kind of confusing where, again, you're trying to figure out what the hell is kind of going on, which runs a bit in line with adolescence and what it is, trying to figure out things and where you stand.
Yeah, and I totally got that the second time I watched it. It's, I think like the whole theme of the show is puberty, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It very
yeah.
much is.
Oh, yeah,
And,
very much.
very much is.
Random rod-like things growing.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, so I was like
trying to keep it
Yeah.
hidden.
So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I mean, I can appreciate what they're doing here, at
Yeah.
least from that angle.
But yeah, it was just a very wonderful show, and
Yeah.
coming back to it, like, it's been fun.
What I find so strange about it is that it's like casual anime fans love it so much, and it's one of the
I
most
believe-
out there shows I've seen.
You know,
it definitely it was a much bigger hit in the West, or at least
yeah,
than
Yeah.
Japan, because I mean it was so popular over here, and part of the fact that it was part of the Adult Swim era of anime, and that they finally are making sequels, or a season 2 and 3 for it, and it's basically being driven by the West. It's even coming out in English over here before it's coming out in Japan.
which is immensely surprising.
Yeah, I think Toonami's like fronting it based a lot for it or something.
I believe so. Yeah. It's just
Well, people have been clamoring for it for like literally
Right.
15 years, so or more than that. So.
Yeah, it was also like they were also testing a lot of technology at the time, so you get a lot of weird like styles changes. Like there's the time where it turns into like a manga, and then they also
Yeah.
copy South Park at some point, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
they did a lot of weird things with on that side of things too. So
it was a very experimental
Yeah.
anime just overall.
also
I know,
their first original work since Evangelion. So
I know a lot of the I know they actually tried out a lot of new things with the series in general. A lot of, in fact, I was kind of it was very interesting because a lot of the techniques that they've used in that series has actually been found in other series. They kind of gave birth to some of the stuff that was used in later series of anime. Things that you would see normally now were kind of birthed from that as well. So it was it's kind of interesting to see, even if you don't really know what the techniques are. To know that is very fascinating.
I'm trying to think of what was I'm looking through Galaxy's stuff now. There's something that came out a little bit before that, around that time, that is very much like the way it's directed. I wanted to see if it was the same director or not. That was also a Gainax show. It's like Kari Kano, I think.
The director was the assistant director for Neo Genesis, and yeah, he did Fooly Cooly, and then he did the hit sequel to Gunbuster, or Die Buster. And he's basically only ever worked on this Evangelion, and then something called Dragon Dentist in 2017.
Okay, now Ano actually did Kari Kano, which is crazy to me, but he's like the big Gainax director that everyone references.
Yeah, Ano is the guy who did Fooly Cooly, actually directed that. Not Fooly, Neon Genesis, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Gunbuster or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But, it's got lots of weird like manga effects that Kari Kano does as well, but but yeah, what about the pillows, man? How about the pillows?
They also have their own band for doing the whole soundtrack.
Yep.
Kind of very, I guess Cowboy Bebop's a really big popular Western one that also had its own band. So that's an interesting thing, I guess.
I think the music itself just fit really well with what was going on. I mean, the music is great, in general, and then it fit really well with kind of what's going on.
I
Yeah.
don't know how
I can't not hear the pillows and start thinking of Fooly Cooly.
The alternative, the pillows are like weird alternate rock. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I just get really that's what stuck with me when I watched the show more than anything.
Was the music.
The music is so good. They use it so well in the show too for the certain scenes and stuff, and it just gets stuck in your head. And I have lots of nostalgia for the pillows because I listened to that CD a whole lot. So It reminds me of like different points in time that aren't connected with Fooly Cooley, but I'm glad to see they're coming back and doing stuff with the
Yeah,
new
they
show.
got the pillows for the return.
Yep, they do. For both versions of.
Yeah, which I'll end up watching. I'll probably wait till it's like the first part's done, and then I'll watch the second season. And then the third season, you said, is coming out next year, right?
September.
Oh, September. Okay.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah.
second season's actually going on right now.
Does it have Naota and them in it, or is it just
It is
Haruka?
new main characters.
It's new main character.
Hana, what's her face?
Haruka.
Haruka is in it as a teacher, I believe.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, she's like a bounty hunter, and she's looking for a pirate
From space, yeah.
Bounty
It's-
hunter from space.
There's a lot of
The
things that don't
pirates.
really even get resolved.
There's not,
The
and
story's like not like
It's not
super
really.
tight.
Yeah,
It's not about that. It's
exactly.
a weird.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's about Naota, who's just a normal boy on Earth, and like wouldn't have the resources to know about all of that stuff anyway. So you don't get to know about it.
Yeah, because it's falling from his perspective, so to speak. So, but then it jumps everywhere.
Doesn't she try to turn him into the pirate or whatever that she's looking for too at some point?
It's never really explained, and you kind of have to
Exactly.
dig into like other stuff. But it's not that he turns into the Pirate King. It's that the Pirate King was actually hiding inside of him.
Yeah, that's right.
And she had an inkling that that was likely the case, but I mean, like you gotta see it at the end of the series. There's spoilers, I know. After 18
Yeah, I mean,
years.
it's really not the point.
Yeah,
Even if like
I-
whatever you do end up spoiling, it's not like the point of the
Yeah,
the anime's
exactly.
making
It's an
anyway.
excuse to have a show, basically.
Right.
yeah. It's
Anime,
like the whole
you should
that's
spoiler first.
yeah. Essentially, like what ended up happening is she ends up getting angry at Naota because he's stolen, quote unquote, or he's taking the power of the Pirate King for himself, and that's why she starts to go after him instead because she thinks that he's going to betray her, which isn't really the case. I mean, that's not what he's caring about at all. He thinks he has feelings for her,
Right,
and
because
whatnot.
he's going through puberty and trying to figure out what all this means.
Yeah.
All the feelings he's having about a girl.
Oh no.
Who there's also his brother's ex-girlfriend because his
Ah.
brother went off to have
And,
her to be like a baseball player, I believe, right?
Yeah.
yep, he went off to
left
America
his,
to join
you know,
Pro League Baseball.
And like his girlfriend he left behind, who like is just sticking around town and
Yeah. Who, I mean, they always hint at things for other characters. Like, finding out about other characters is generally always hinted at what they do or talk about in passing. It's almost never the focus because it's all coming from the perspective of it really is focusing on Naota and his trying to understand things. So while they tell you a lot of stuff that's going on, it either doesn't make sense or it's coming from the perspective of you're not really going to know about it because unfortunately you can't. So that's really it.
Yeah, I'm surprised they ended up doing a second season, and I wonder if it's gonna be super crazy and basically non sequiturs everywhere and stream of consciousness. If they're gonna like try to focus more on a story, like what themes are they gonna talk about in the show? That's like the interesting part to me more than anything, I guess.
My knee-jerk reaction when I first heard that they were doing new seasons was, no, what are they doing? No, somebody stop them, please. Because as much as nothing made sense and there were so many just plots unfulfilled, point that it was like there's so much more to the world when you're an adolescent and there's so many things you want to grab onto and everything's flying out of your hands and nothing is under your control. So to bring about another season, and especially if they try to answer some of those questions, it is going to cheapen the effect that season 1 had.
I'm kind of backing you on this one. I feel like they're trying to potentially capture lightning in a bottle twice. Because I mean, like Fooly Cooley in itself again was a very experimental idea. It was heavily funded and based around the idea that they were going to try out new things and potentially make something cool out of it. It wasn't funded on the idea of making a very successful series. So
Money talks, man.
I mean, it does. And don't
That's
get me
why
wrong.
I'm
Like,
watching season 3 of Show Silver right now. Oh yeah.
let's see.
It's about
Just
to catch
some
up
quick-
with the manga.
pull up those numbers, Mal.
The first episode has an 8 out of 10 review on this website. I'm just like scanning without trying to actually see what they're
I hope
saying
I'm-
about it because
Yeah.
I hope I'm
'cause
pleasantly
just
surprised. I really want it to succeed because Fooly Cooly is great. I don't think it was ever fully designed for a sequel in mind.
no,
Yeah.
it was not. I don't
And I
think
do
at all.
recognize that if I
Obviously.
watch it,
Yeah.
I will probably have some aspect of bias where I enjoy it, regardless.
Will it be as interesting without Gainax attached to it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see it.
I don't know.
I'm just
if I
worried,
trust
again, about-
production IG
like,
enough on their own.
They also work. Did they not work on the first one?
They did, but
Okay.
Gainax
Yeah.
was also helping them. So
Was
I think
like
all
the
the crazy
lead, I'm
stuff
pretty
came
sure.
from Gainax.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, production IG is pretty good.
Yeah,
I would
production
think.
IG's well,
Yeah,
they've done
but
some
can they
great
do
stuff.
it?
Guilty Crown, Psychopaths, Eden in the East, and The Ghost in the Shell. They've got some pretty strong names underneath.
Persona 5.
They did the cutscenes for Tales of Symphonia, the at least animated.
Oh,
artwork. So
all 3 minutes of them.
I know.
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
And they have a lot under.
I mean,
their
I don't.
belt.
I don't
No,
think
I'm not
it
shitting
can't-
on them or
It
trying
can't
to.
be the same. Like, right? Like, they
I
would have
would
had to
hope
have made
not.
it in mind of it not being able to be the same.
They could have got
I-
Trigger to help them.
That's
Oh my
true.
god. I assume it can't be the same either. I would think
It probably is
they would do
more
that.
about targeting more of the nostalgia aspect of
Oh,
the
I'm
first.
sure. I'm
than-
sure. I'm sure.
Well,
I mean, I love
because
Welcome to
other
the
thing
Ballroom.
is- The other thing too, for at least for me, is that, like, again, the first was having the point of adolescence, and there is enough of a cultural shift that has happened for adolescents of the 2000s and current adolescents, where if they are still trying to do that, and it's more about appealing to a new audience than it is about roping in those who are buying in just because it's called Fully Cooley. I can see it working for them.
Yeah. Plus, they've already like they were kind of
To be that way,
simultaneously.
but
They were simultaneously doing 2 seasons with 2 different main characters. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see like what story they're kind of trying to tell with each one.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, production IG is never going to surpass the pinnacle, the zenith of their art, Neo Yokio.
Oh God.
My god.
I legit love Neo Yokio. So, but I've talked about that on the podcast already.
Look, all I'm saying is that they did the new Princess, and that's good enough. Okay.
Hey, Prince of Tennis is not that bad.
I actually haven't seen it, so I have no idea. I just chose one of the names of the production on the list in front of me.
It's Shonen Sports.
Yes.
There you go.
And again, and whatever happens, whatever season 2 and 3 are, it's still season 1's still there for you to enjoy.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, season 1 is really what spawned the love for it. So
Yeah. It's good
I'm-
stuff.
I'm excited. I'm excited, wary, but excited. I really want this to
Yeah.
be a successful thing, but I don't want it to lose the magic that it has.
Right. For being only 6 episodes, there's a lot of like distinctive stuff. Like, well, basically everything Haruka has, right? The girl with the pink hair, the bass, and then the yellow Vespa is just
Yeah,
like
the
so
Vespa.
iconic.
Oh yeah.
that animation for that closing song. I mean, come on, with the Vespa.
Yeah, they also do that in Karikano too. That's something else that reminded me. Something similar to that. They have like a live action ending credits thing. But anyways.
Only 6 episodes long. That means you can watch it twice in the span you would normally watch one show of only 1 season.
True. Alright, let's transition topics here. Tats, you're up next. What do you got?
Well, I have been, when I'm not here and not on the wall in the Shadowlands, usually if I have time to myself at home, I've been working on my Stars Without Number game that I've talked about a few times before. Again, because of what I was, I had brought up a whole episode about the trappings and the difficulties of sci-fi RPGs versus fantasy RPGs, and you can go check that out if you're interested. But because of that, I have been watching a lot of online videos and reading a lot of articles about how to be a better GM and how to perfect your craft as a GM. Not necessarily crafting as in making things to play with on the table, though that is part of it.
You got your DMing
Wow.
for dummies book, right?
Yep. DM for dummies.
Um,
HP means hit points.
Yes.
One day I was bored in a Books a Million. Sorry, a tangent here. I picked up a Dungeons and Dragons for Dummies book because I saw they had it, and it was like tips. I just turned a random page. It was like tips for playing a wizard in 3.5. It was like take the toughness feat. It's just like something that sticks. That's just something that sticks from me. Like,
I mean,
with me.
that's not bad advice for someone who's brand new.
It's not bad advice. It's not what I would tell them.
No.
But anyways, sorry,
if out of a core new beginner, I would give them the toughness feat, sure.
I mean, it really isn't a bad move. I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, that is, I guess, to be fair, that wizard would have more health, so
Right.
he could survive 2 melee attacks.
2 cats.
2 cats would require to take down this wizard in melee combat.
Anyway, let's back on track.
I'm sorry, Tats. I'm sorry.
Fine, because actually that can kind of play into this a little bit depending on what y'all's answers are. Because I was curious.
Oh, you're all robot-y.
All robot.
Yeah, try again, Tiz.
All robot, no action.
Could please put into the file what your favorite.
Nope.
I was.
I will wear your skin, flesh bag.
No, I was.
Nope.
Yeah, you might have to like
leave and come back.
Yeah,
leave and come back.
real quick.
Leave and come back.
Get out of here.
I'm leaving it in this episode just because it's so funny. All right, try again.
Back.
Round 2.
No, he's
Nope.
not.
Just no sound that time. It got worse.
Yeah. You there,
He's
Ted?
dead.
No,
He's gone
All
forever.
right. So
He's
yeah,
lost
D&D for dummies.
Yeah.
You got
Quick,
you get D4
5
hit
times.
points as a wizard. So at level 1, take the toughness feat.
I mean, I would. Let's see. Out of 3.5, if it was core only for a new player, I'd give him improved initiative first, and then
Yes.
probably improved toughness.
I would definitely give
And then
him.
there's spell focus, and that's it, really. Spell penetration needs to be later on, but those are like the 3 feats I would tell him to choose from, honestly.
It's actually kind of weird when it's actually funny because playing more of the raw spellcasters, you find that like a lot of your feats like are non-existent.
Yeah. Especially core. Oh,
There he is.
I was waiting to get to like a period point to make a comment, and then just sorry.
Okay, all right. Let's go.
It was loading for a little while. I still haven't got all the Bakemono out of my internet connection yet.
Yeah.
Just hit him.
So you had said I was curious, and then you went out.
I was curious for you guys what your favorite devices that you've come across, either being told, read, saw, played under, or even that you yourself have come up with. I was just curious what for y'all has really rang true with yourselves as either GMs or players, both ways.
For a device?
advice.
Advice. Okay, I thought you said device. I'm like, man.
Roll 20, let me tell you.
Let me tell you about Roll 20. I have a love-hate relationship with that damn thing.
So does your SO.
God, I know, right? The best advice that I have heard, there's a lot of good advice out there.
I can go.
Yeah, go. I have to think about this. This is actually kind of tough.
Basically, working on your improv skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like probably the best I've heard is, being put on the spot can be very trying. And like, if you can flex those muscles basically. And as even Matt Mercer was just talking about it on last week's Talks, or this week's Talks Machina, was basically yes and is probably the most important thing like he has. And just working with what your player wants to do. And
explain the theory of yes and to us, Mel.
So when if someone asks you if they want to try and do something that maybe not even is necessarily supported in the rules, you tell them yes, and then you try and work it into the rules, maybe by a certain kind of role, just because it feels like it makes sense to you. Like there's he also, or like in Matt Mercer's case, he was talking about fleshing out an area quickly, and that's like working with your players to ask it's like they
What are
first
they
get to a
looking for?
town. Yeah, what are they looking for? It's like, oh, well, is there an inn? Yes, there are two, in fact. And
Yeah.
there's like he was talking. Yeah,
And I would add to that the yes and because that was pretty high up on my list of ones is the yes but, and I think it goes hand in hand, but I think you should weight more towards the yes and over the yes but.
yeah. Well,
'Cause-
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the
I mean, I
that's
like
just the
but.
name of the rule for improv.
But
Like, you
but
can go either direction, really.
you could, but there is a distinction because saying yes but kind of affirms that like yes you could do that, but you should do it this way. Whereas yes and
There's a problem.
yeah, there's a problem with it. Whereas yes and implies that yes and here's how you could do it potentially
or you could,
like this way.
you could try and do it.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
try and do it. But the yes and I think is specific, but I don't know if too many people are going to linger on the actual two different words, which is really what the core is. You were
Yeah.
saying is
Yeah.
yes and is what's important. is that you
Also,
try to
I
link it
mean, you
back.
also shouldn't just be saying yes to everything. Obviously, like don't all. I mean, the flip side of that is don't be afraid to say no.
Yeah.
Like I want to
this fried
just
chicken.
decapitate. I want to decapitate this guy in one strike. You gotta go. No, that's not just if that's just not how the rules work at all.
That
Like
is
if
not
something's
how it
just
works.
so blatantly not gonna work, right?
Like I just ate was actually from a chicken that actually crossed the road. Therefore,
I mean, like you can, and then there's also like you can also always go with the no part of that rule being is like no, or even better is like what I like to actually do personally, and this is my own personal advice, is instead of saying no, I say you could do that, but you would also know that doing that could lead to X consequence, Y consequence, or Z consequence. You sure you still want to do this?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it to them, but they know that there's going to be consequences on them. So when you kind of place it out there, it kind of puts the ball back in their court, and you can kind of get an idea if they're really going to push through with it. You can always give another reaffirmation. It's like, are you very sure? Because this will cause problems for you and potentially anybody around you.
Right. It's like I
And-
want to just
But as
steal
the
from this rich
GM
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can try, but there are guards right there.
Yeah. And then
if
and
they
like
eventually say that yes, that is really what they want to do, you as a GM now know what that player at least and the players as a group are looking for out of the game.
yeah, and it actually kind of helps build on it, which is
Or that they just don't expect there to be real consequences, and
that's
maybe
very
you should
possible too.
also show that there can be.
Yeah, and that's
So
possible
that
too.
it's a real
Yeah,
world.
I mean that's all gonna be
You'll
from
find it
learning the
out.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to learn the group, but
Like
I
if
would
you
always
steal in front of a
recommend-
guard, they should expect the guard, like if he sees you, to react.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's definitely something I would always put forward is like don't immediately just latch a consequence on them, and like you can say no. Definitely remember that you have the ability to say no as a GM, but but I also like to organically say is like you can, but there's going to be plenty of potential consequences for you, and they might all hit you at the same time.
Yeah.
And then
Like no one should be surprised if they break the law that they go to jail, but at the same time there should be some leeway in, I didn't really know that saying that thing would offend that one Crane samurai because I'm Crane and I'm a lion.
very big
whatever.
reason for L5R as well.
I generally do say that when it's particularly a lethal scenario, and they're
Yes.
like, "Well, I kind of want to go up there and tell the emperor that he's stupid and he's lying." And I was
are
like,
you
it's like,
sure?
okay, are you sure you want to do that in the middle of winter court?
Just
Here's
be aware that
why.
you probably won't be alive after.
Yeah, no,
So
Your character knows from their upbringing that is a very what they consider to be a very bad move.
Yeah. We call it a very bad move.
generally regarded as a
It's a dick move.
bad move.
Yeah, you've actually probably done more research in this than I have, Tets, but no, like Matt was saying, I think Matt has a lot of good videos actually about particularly about fleshing out worlds. I like his. I can't remember exactly the steps he said, but he had a video about NPCs and just basically like jotting down. I think like 3 things like where did they come from, what do they want in this moment, and
Where did
something.
they go?
Yeah,
Cotton Eye
like
Joe.
something. Yeah, where they come from, Cotton Eye NPC.
And that's one of the things I struggled with as a new GM was I wanted to know everything about every NPC, and so if they were going to go talk to a random NPC, it was actually going to be one of the ones I made, and I had to learn to pare that back to allow more impromptu improv.
Yeah, and it's fun to have more structured stuff. Like there's no, I don't think there's like as far as that goes, being more improv or having more notes or stuff, there's not like really a wrong way to GM. But I do think that everyone who wants to GM at least once needs to try to run at least like one session, get like a group you're comfortable with, and like just have no notes and just completely like have an idea of where you want it to go, but don't like have anything written down necessarily, and just like let it roll and kind of like spin ball and like put like the narrative, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Action, I guess, in the PC, like really in their hands.
Yeah.
And when
I
think everyone needs to try
thing.
that at least once, because it'll really improve your when things don't go as planned, you are more prepared and practiced at coming up with stuff on the fly. I think that's like probably like the most important skill like a good GM has, and I mean, which is what Mal was saying, is just your ability to improv stuff off the fly.
I think the piece of advice I would give personally, and it's gonna unfortunately I can't cover it all in one shot, so I mean there's so much to give, but the one piece of advice I could give is compromise. The GM and the players have to understand that this is technically a relationship. Yeah, it's a very collaborative story. It's a relationship between two different groups of people, and the GM should understand on a level is that everything can be recompromised. And the player should understand that sometimes your GM might have to come and sit down and say, hey, what you're doing is a little bit overpowered, and it's hard to work around that for me. I'd like to rebalance it. And you gotta, that kind of give and take thing has to happen. I always personally give on the idea that it is harder to take away than it is to give. But understand that sometimes you might give something that you don't think is all that potent, or you might do something because you want it to be cool, and you might find out it's...
That's why rust monsters exist.
That's exactly right.
Or black pudding.
But what it comes really down to is compromise. The GMs have to be open to understanding that as a player, the player might find something as underwhelming, or they might find that some option that they took wasn't as good as they thought it would be. And the GM has to understand that, the players are going to, sometimes they're going to be right bastards and want to, just go around and scurry wherever they like. And sometimes they're going to need a little pushing and prodding. But everybody has to kind of work together to make these things come out just right. So compromise. Learn to talk to your players, and players learn to talk to your GM. Because if you want to go into a game that's just about kicking the door, running to the next room, killing the monsters, and taking the treasure, and your GM's got you set up and ready to go for this awesome role-playing adventure that has very little combat, y'all are already in a problem. So you should definitely talk to one another, kind of get a base everything, and then learn to compromise on what you guys want.
Yeah, that actually plays directly into the comment that I was going to make. Communication. A lot of GM advice that I come across and I see comes down to communication. And it can be, body language communication. It can be, communicating what's happening through dice rolls, whatever. But as a GM, you have to be aware of the communication going on, but in the table, and this social contract that everybody is signed to play a game together. If you have this, as you're saying, if you have this adventure of RP and there's going to be political intrigue and courtiers are really going to be the best class for this, but I'm not necessarily going to tell anybody. And then you have a whole bunch of bushy who want to go down to the Shadowlands and go venture through the Shadowlands. Like, you have to all be on the same page. But furthermore, it can be something as simple as a GM, you make a snap ruling and you see just visibly slump in their chairs, and you realize, that ruling probably wasn't the best ruling. And you have like half a second to kind of reverse and go, actually, no, I think that you might have a point. Yes, and so I think they communicate like just paying attention, and even if it is sitting them down and saying, look, this is the type of game we're wanting to have together, or something as simple as just paying attention to how people are responding to decisions being made and things thrown at them.
Yeah, I think two pieces of advice that I would give, and the first one kind of plays off what you're talking about, is know your group and know what they're looking for, and be upfront about what kind of game you're trying to run, because it just makes things more difficult down the road if, especially if you say one thing and it ends up becoming something else. And sometimes that happens. It's natural and everybody likes it. But sometimes people are going to be disappointed, particularly in a game like L5R where you can be a courtier and that's almost like just for role playing essentially, or you can be a bushi, and that you want more combat scenarios obviously out of that. Two, one of my favorite, I don't remember where I read it or saw it, but was be afraid to ditch your plot hook when the PCs think of something cooler. So if say like you have some kind of mystery going on, like the local like Castellan like murdered the lord of the castle or something, and your PCs think that it's the kind of like heroic paladin guy that you had helping out the investigation. Maybe they like suspect it's him, and at times it's cool to ditch your plans that you might have had and maybe had the paladin like be in on it with the other guy too, because it basically like rewards the collaborative aspect of we're all creating the story together. It gives the PCs like vindication because their in character and out character suspicions turn out to be true, and you can sometimes just get cool plot hooks out of it because now maybe the paladin gets away. Why did the paladin want to murder the lord guy? What consequences does that have? Now he's like a more interesting character than the typical like do-goody paladin who's just trying to help you solve the mystery of why the lord's dead. So that's something I've implemented a lot, and sometimes your players will surprise you with cool hooks that you hadn't initially thought of. So I think that's another good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of want to give a second piece of advice on here as well, because I gave one for like the game in and of itself, but I also want to give one to as players as well, and players and GMs actually. When you're role playing a character, like some of us are, have our comfort levels on how we play our characters. We might want to not do vices. You might just want to kind of do a character that you feel comfortable with. This is a very common thing. It's not unheard of, but one thing I do see a lot, and this on this level, is you want to get people at least immersed in their character, regardless if they do voices, regardless if they want to really be emotive on things or not. If somebody says, well, I want to do this, or I want to say this to somebody, or I tell, like, you expose something to them and say, well, I tell this person that. And we say, well, ask them, well, how would your characters say this? Or how would they translate to this to them? How would they say it? Because it encourages you actually saying what needs to be said to them. It encourages that sense of role play. Don't be afraid to get into your character and say what should be said, as opposed to just saying, well, I just, pass off that information to so-and-so.
Even if it's like, there's also a difference of mindset that leads into that. If you say, my character's going to ask about the lock versus I want to ask the guard about that lock we saw. When you say like my character does, or he does, or she does versus what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of GM resources out there. So
there really
lots of good advice.
There are a lot of good advice. In fact, sometimes when you see things that are advice, you see things that are good advice, and you see things that are bad advice. I don't know that I've ever really seen some horrible advice for GMs. Maybe advice that doesn't apply to your particular table. But again, that goes down to the communication aspect, I would say, too, the other aspect...
Offer to buy the group pizza so they trust you, and then put arsenic all over.
Usually the horror stories are the bad advice. It's more just like, don't do this. But
one of the so the other aspect of GMing beyond just arbitrating at the table, and as far as getting the story before the players have even sat down, just whatever you're planning for the night. One of the biggest pieces of advice I've seen, and I see it repeated all over the place because I think people do need to hear it because they try not to. Don't be afraid to borrow from your favorite sources of media associated with what you're playing.
Rip stuff off all the time, especially if you're having trouble coming up with ideas. And I say rip off, I don't mean that like pejoratively. But I mean, yeah, just whatever you like, it can always be a good source of inspiration.
Yeah, it's not like you're selling this stuff, so there's no plagiarism really.
Right. You have a bunch of players L5 and all of them just Ronin. Well, that was their.
All your
Nope,
samurai turn into
that's-
robots.
Yeah.
Ah.
All your samurais turn to robots. Oh, poor Tets.
Yeah,
He's dead again.
he's still gone. He's still gone, Tits.
Come back.
Am I back?
You're back.
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that you have all your players are playing samurai, but they all decided to play Ronin. 7 samurai, or maybe 1 or 2 of them have. And they may be big fans of 7 samurai, but because they are seeing things through the lens of their character and through the lens of L5R, just again taking this as an example, you can easily get away with doing a 7 samurai styled story. And all that they are seeing is that they are Ronin that have been disgraced, and they're able to protect these peasants, and they feel good because they protected these peasants. A lot of times players will start to fold in on things, because part of it too is, let's be honest, the reason why you want to play samurai game is because you enjoy samurai movies. The reason why you want to play fantasy, you love Lord of the Rings.
Some people don't love Lord of the Rings and love
No,
fantasy.
I
but
know.
I know what you're saying, though.
It as an example, like you know, there are media that get you into genre, and so then when you play a game around a certain genre, and the GM is borrowing from that piece of media that got you into that genre,
Cyberpunk Shadowrun.
feel like they're like, this is the reason I play the game, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Borrow stuff. I borrow stuff all the time.
Borrow.
Oh, yeah.
Take it and do whatever you
Borrow's
want.
the politically
You
correct
don't need to
term
give that
now.
back.
Not steal.
It's yours now.
Not horribly steal.
Some things
Just-
up. Don't have a Malcolm
Plunder.
Reynolds, but you can have an Alan Reynolds. I don't know.
I mean, you definitely don't.
This is not Superman. This is Superhuman.
I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you don't really have to.
Mm.
You don't have to come up with all of your own ideas. Don't be afraid to pull off from other things and use them as a basis, or even just follow them one for one but apply a new fresh paint of coat to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and so
Fresh coat of paint.
kind of wrap that up, and then ask the last part of the question I was going to ask y'all. Is for resources that you guys may have come across. Obviously, we've said Matt Mercer; he's great.
Yeah.
Well,
he has well, I guess technically,
much.
I don't remember who. There's a whole video series of him doing
Yeah,
DM
DM
tips,
tips.
basically. On D&D or
Yes.
Geek and Sundry. I don't
It's
remember.
not Geek and Sundry.
Oh, okay, yeah, Geek and Sundry's website or
But
YouTube.
it's unfortunately, if you really like Matt Mercer, they have swapped and switched.
Yeah,
People who have done the DM tips, which
yeah, he did a bunch
good,
of the
so-
original, and then they switched to other people because I mean, yeah, other people have their own tips.
Yep, and different perspectives.
Right.
But the person that I really enjoy, and I don't know his actual like name or even like his handle that he goes by, because his YouTube channel is called How to Be a Great Game Master. And he's from South Africa. But he has like a kind of a borderline British accent. But
So he has a South African
Don't
accent.
yeah, well, but not everybody knows the South
That's
African
true.
accents.
It's
That,
Dutch,
but it's
but-
South, yeah, most people are not
it's
going to know what
literally
South
Dutch.
African is. It's just Dutch. It's
Yeah,
a
you say
British
South
Dutch.
African, and people just think African, therefore he must be black, and he's actually a white guy. So, that's
Yeah, no. South
Anyway.
Africa was a colony.
Yep, it was a colony.
but that was the only reason why I clarified that statement. Anyway, but he has a one statement that he makes almost in every single episode, and this is what's going to tie back to that last statement, is that there's no such thing as an original story. It's the idea that somebody wants something very, very badly and is having a hard time getting it. Are you out there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of like reductions of stories all the time. Like, yeah, the hero's
Yeah.
journey has been around forever. And
Absolutely.
Exactly. But the point being that, at any point you can draw something back to one of those major elements and
Yeah.
then back to your story. And
I mean,
and
that's why
sometimes-
there's a trope for everything. Like, it already
Yeah.
exists.
Yep.
Yeah. Play free GM. Play lots of games. Start to GM lots of games because you just get better by doing it more.
Yep.
Pay
But
attention to
don't
what
think-
people do.
The
have
last
to play a bunch of games before you GM. I would say at some point there are people who their first ever game is them GMing, and that's fine. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do that. Jumping in the deep end can be a lot of fun.
It is. The other thing to remember, and this is really important as well, just like how a writer writes a story, how you GM is going to be unique a bit to yourself.
Oh yeah,
You're never going to be.
everyone's got their own style.
Yep, everybody's got their own style, their own format, their own way, and sometimes that may not always mesh well with your players. You'll have to learn a new style or kind of start from scratch.
I think Matt Mercer is an amazing storyteller, but like the mechanical side of Critical Role leaves a lot to be desired if that's your thing.
Yeah, which if you're going in for the mechanical side, it's probably not your, the favorite meat you could get, so to speak. But
Yeah.
that's going to be dependent on you and how your group is and how you want to do it. You're never going to be like John or Bob off to the side. You're going to be your own DM. So don't worry about trying to emulate everything that somebody else does. Learn your style, learn it well, and then work on potentially trying to morph it into things that you think are better for it. But don't try to, it's almost like when you're working out or going to the gym. Don't worry about what the other guy is doing. Worry about yourself. Work on yourself, and then you can look around for you after you're at a good point and then say, like, I kind of want to be a little bit more like that, or I kind of want to be a little more like that, and follow into it. But don't try to copy everybody. It's not going to work. And you're going to find yourself always wanting.
Word. I agree completely. All right.
The two final comments. Don't be afraid to copy, but please don't copy.
Yeah. Don't copy original content.
It's not completely don't completely mimic someone. It's fine to borrow bits and pieces.
Well, but you know what? It's okay to, if that is what you're going for. And if everybody comes to the table,
draw inspiration from the story, but like you're gonna have to DM whatever works best for you.
Exactly.
You can't force it.
Exactly.
You can't make X happen. Just do it the way that is the most natural to you. Don't get too hung up about the world that you might be playing in or about the rules of it. Just learn your style first, and then you can spread out from there.
Spread them wings.
Yep.
All right, Mal, it's your time.
All right.
The light is on you.
Your time is up.
Shine.
My time
Mal,
is
let
now.
your light shine down.
You can't see me. My time.
Shine
is
on, Mal. Shine on.
I have been playing a little game recently called Moonlighter.
I have no
What
clue what
is
this game
Moonlighter?
is.
What? Seriously?
You probably do. We did talk about it briefly.
Did we?
Yeah.
I mean, no. Me and Obs did after a streaming session, I believe. It's
Maybe I just don't remember.
yeah. So
Oms is a bad friend. He wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying, Mal.
it's an action RPG
Exposed.
indie game. It came out May 29th, and they call it roguelite. Like it.
Oh no! Now I see it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, you had to look it up.
Yeah, I did have to Google it.
You play Will, who
Silly.
inherited his parents' shop in a town that propped up around some dungeons where heroes would go and explore and try and figure out what's going on, basically. And so by day you run a shop, and by night you go into the
Zelda.
dungeons and get stuff for your shop. Yeah, so there's a very basic story, like gets you started. Like you're not a hero, you're a merchant, so you can only go into the easiest dungeon to fill your shop.
So,
But yeah, it plays like that sort of top-down style action game, like the older Zeldas sort of. It's very charming, I guess. Like the visual aspects are they're very like the bulk probably went towards the visual style. Like they put in a lot of work. This is also their first game. It's just some Digital Sun Games is the studio, but it's just a small indie studio. This is their first game. So yeah, during the day you'll be able to put out items for sale. People will come in. You have to set the prices. Like you might try and be like, 50 gold, and then someone will come in and be like, this is too much, and they'll leave. Or they'll be like, or they'll get like dollar or coin gold, I guess, in their eye for eyes, and they'll be like, this is basically, it tells you this was a steal for them. You're not charging enough at all. So you get to dial in the prices. And then you also get eventually you get to start unlocking more stuff in the town, because the town you are in is basically nothing has really come about from these dungeons in like a generation. So the town is kind of dying. So you get the option to start investing back into the town, which opens up like the armorer or the enchanter and some other shops and a banker.
So
and yeah.
Okay, go. Sorry.
No, what?
I was gonna ask. So, like, do you start when you're starting the game off? Do you just like how does it kind of open up for you? Like,
so the game starts off with a broom trying to go through in this dungeon, and it's basically a quick tutorial. It just teaches you how the game works, and then eventually you get to a room where there's too much. You can't. There's like a bunch of enemies that you can't deal with, and you die or whatever. Your health runs out, and you get basically when your health runs out, you just get spit out of the dungeon. And then the old like the elder of the town comes across as you and's like, well. At one point, I'm pretty sure he takes you back to your bed, and then he's like, "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this."
Yeah,
sword and shield.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so that's your actual starter weapon.
That's great.
Yes, the game has 5 weapons. There's the spear, the sword and shield, the great sword, the knuckles, and a bow.
So a little bit of Secret of Mana in there too.
Yeah.
I ended up being quite the fan of the spear and bow because you can equip 2 weapons and cycle through them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then so what you collect in the dungeons, you can sell, but you also need to hold on to stuff that you will need for crafting purposes, basically. So there's kind of that management aspect of it as well. And then whenever you're in the dungeon, you only have so much room in your backpack. So eventually you got to like start cutting the cheaper stuff maybe as you try and clear out or keep going deeper maybe. And each time you enter a dungeon, it's all random, like it's all procedurally generated. The floor, each dungeon has 3 floors. There are the 4 dungeons that you know about, and then there's the 5th that is never been opened.
Okay, so there's definitely something for the world then to explore, and there's a bit of a mystery to it as well.
Yeah, there's not a lot of story going on, but there's some, and then like there's a bunch of like you'll find random pages as you explore, like to flesh out the lore of the world and like different expeditions into the dungeons you'll learn about.
That's your dig, Mao. That was more your dig kind of stuff too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like kind of Dark Souls.
Very Dark Souls.
Yeah. Again, it's all very charming. The visuals are amazing. I love the style. Graphic. Yeah,
any sprite graphic
really
game,
good.
I just love it.
Yeah,
like how they look.
Like the sprites are wonderful.
The music's very enjoyable. It's unfortunately it is kind of shallow right now. There's not a lot to like mechanically going on. So the Kickstarter raised just under 140,000, I believe. 134,000. So there were quite a few stretch goals because the original was for 40,000. So they hit every stretch goal they put on there, and not all of them have been implemented yet, which will add more, like thematic armor and weapons, special abilities that you'll getting, and a hardcore mode that turns the rogue light into a rogue like. So I assume you just have to reset if you die. So yeah, there's like, I know they've been. I don't know how big the studio is. They have a decent. They're decently active on the subreddit. Like the subreddit's not super active, but like developers answering questions and talking about the game. And they're coming out with a roadmap soon to like, definitively show like what's coming.
All right.
So I think I took it a bit easy. So this game was great for me to just like sit and play.
It's a nice chill game.
Yeah, and chill basically. And so I took my time with it, and it took me only about 20 hours.
That's good for $20.
Right, and it's a $20 game, which is I'm perfectly fine with spending $1 for an hour of entertainment.
Yeah,
basically. And I could have easily beaten in 15. And I've seen some people who have like said it's too easy and they beat it in 10. So,
just wait for the speed runs, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and I also got it on sale for $16. So, like, getting on sale might be the more way to go right now. And once they I think once they implement everything, it'll be a much richer gaming experience. Right now, it feels a little light, but just the style and aesthetics and everything, it was definitely something. It was super enjoyable for me, and I haven't been able to play a lot of games lately, so I've just like I just haven't been into it. But this was like chill enough for me to just kind of drop in and play. And it's coming out with a Switch version later this year.
I'll probably wait till then to play it.
Yeah, Switch version would sound pretty fun for this.
Yeah, I think it would work really well on Switch.
I get all my like old school indie like pixel art games on the Switch.
Yeah,
because it just feels like they fit there. But no, you gotta have something to hold you over another month till Dragon Quest comes out, right?
Oh yeah. Well, so we'll get Octopath soon.
Yeah, we will. It'll be the mad rush for me to beat that 100-hour game before Dragon Quest comes out.
Right.
I can do it.
Yeah, it's like I say this. It's like it only took me 20 hours to beat, and it's like for a lot of people that's actually a decent amount of time. But when you're used to playing like 100-hour games, it's so different.
Yeah, it totally is. That's how those games become chill games for you, because you can just like relax and sit back and go at your own pace. And
I've actually never really I've never played any of the original Zeldas, so like I've never actually played many styles of this game. I've played some roguelikes, like actual roguelikes where you just have to start over if you die. Outside of that, I've not played many like the top-down 2-ish D action games.
That's cool, man. You should go back and play some more of those, actually.
I mean, I quite enjoyed this one, so I'm not opposed to it.
Link to the Past. Play a Link to the Past. Don't play original Zelda. And God, don't play Zelda 2. I love Zelda 2, but that's probably the hardest game I've beaten. That or Ninja Gaiden 1 probably is the most like sit down for a whole day and beat this old ass NES game. But
yeah, so I think it comes down. I found it very charming. Is like this is basically what I found about it. And I wish there was more. Honestly, like I enjoy running a shop's not tedious. It was an interesting idea. Like there is an economy, like quote unquote, but it like certain items are more in demand each day, which basically means like more people will come in for that versus something like if it's in low demand, you might not sell.
It reminds me of Harvest Moon, but the games that were for the DS. I can't remember what that series. They had like basically like a spin-off series.
Well, the people that originally
remember Rune Factory.
Rune Factory.
I did see people say Rune Factory is very similar, but with a lot more going on. Yeah. So, with I saw someone like, if you want more like this, but more to do, go with Rune Factory 4.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad to hear, but hopefully the DLC stuff will expand it, so to speak.
Yeah, the stretch goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
All right.
I gotta definitely play this game at some point. It looks very fun.
Yeah, like if you can grab it on sale, especially,
Yeah.
it'll be a good.
Also-
I think it's
yeah.
a good deal.
Let me know if it's
Yeah.
ever on sale too, because I'm not opposed to like getting it at a discount price before the Switch version. So
Let me just double check right now.
There
'cause
will
I didn't-
eventually be a time when I have downtime, and my backlog is almost completely clear now that I've played South Park. So
Yeah.
I basically have Nier.
Oh yeah, play Nier.
It's never on sale
Oh yeah. You
till
gotta buy
after
it.
the last time you pointed it out.
Guess
Yeah.
what? Just can't. Is it on Steam?
It's not
Yeah,
going
just
on that
double checking because it's
Yeah,
the
it's the
summer
Steam
sale
summer
does
Steam
sale.
summer
start.
sale.
And no, unrelated, Neo no Kuni is on sale, so I might grab that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That'll
no,
tide
it
you
is.
over.
It is not on sale, unfortunately, for the summer sale.
There you go.
But yeah,
Rats. I'll play it eventually.
neither is Nier, but you really shouldn't play that on PC.
Oh. I'll
They
play it on the
appar-
Xbox One XS.
Nier has some damaging bugs that just never got fixed.
Yeah, that's
on
what
the
my
PC.
buddy told me. That's where he played it on. But
Whoever did that port did an awful job, apparently.
all right, let's get on to my
Anywho,
topic.
close us out. Bring it home.
Speed running. This will probably be
Oh,
fairly short, as is appropriate. We're going to speed run through this.
we're gonna
topic.
speed run this
Yeah.
last topic.
SGDQ starts this coming Sunday, which will be the day before this episode releases. For those who don't know, GDQ stands for Games Done Quick. They are a semi-annual charity speedrun event. It's put on by the speedrun community. They raise money for different charities. Prevent Cancer
There's-
Foundation in the winter. In the
There's
summer,
A and S.
yeah, there's A and S. Awesome Games Done Quick. This is Summer Games Done Quick. They're raising money for Doctors Without Borders. Last summer, they raised almost $1.8 million over 8 days, basically. And AGDQ's previous years, their highest fundraiser yet, they made $2.3 million for Prevent Cancer Foundation. So they raise a lot of money. The events are always cool, particularly if you're into speedrunning, which I'm not really a part of the community anymore, I guess. But I have speedrun stuff I've talked about before on the podcast. So before GDQs were very like you'd see the same stuff every year. But what I've appreciated they've been doing lately is putting different kinds of runs in.
Yeah,
more
they've been
races.
mixing it up a lot more.
We got the
lately.
rando race last year for Link to the Past, which was amazing and probably my favorite run of the event. They're
the 2 games, 1 controller.
yeah, they're doing a lot more interesting stuff like that, and I'm glad to see they're like sticking with that because some of the old stuff like your Super Metroid race every year.
There's some games
stale.
just don't have a lot of innovation in their
Yeah.
speedrunning.
And there's still
necessarily.
some of that I'm disappointed with, and we'll kind of talk about it. And you might be surprised to hear me be disappointed with this. But no, one of the big runs is the run that always starts off the marathon. It's always the get hop. There's always a huge burst of money. I'm surprised they picked Banjo-Tooie to start the marathon. Yeah, it's being run by Garage Door Opener, who I don't know anything about. But Banjo-Kazooie is like an immensely popular speedrun. It's definitely a top 10 like probably game people talk about. A lot of the N64 games are, but Banjo-Tooie I never hear people talk about. So I'm surprised that they went with this for the first one. After that is Spyro the Dragon, which I could have seen making a lot more sense. But yeah, there's some interesting runs. The first day usually has a bunch of big games, and the last day they've got Spyro after that. They got a Kirby game. Shantae is a very popular speed game. Warcraft 3, they're doing Majora's Mask 3D. Everybody loves the Majora's Mask speedruns. And something interesting about Majora's Mask 3D versus the console version, the games are really different, weirdly. Like the routing and how you do stuff and the glitches. So they're very different runs. So
Oh, I guess just different glitches.
Yeah, so one year they'll have like the console version, then the next year they'll do like a version like the handheld. They'll do that for like Ocarina of Time too. Doom 16 is a very popular run. A lot of the Bethesda games are actually pretty popular, and they're usually pretty glitchy.
Right.
So those are always fun. I love the Elder Scrolls runs where they beat the game in like 30 seconds.
I basically watch for the races though and weird stuff. Or
the races are some of the best part, and like that's the first day. I want to talk about more of the runs I'm excited about, and I didn't know if there was any that you guys were interested in seeing. So Mega Man 6 race. The Mega Man races are always really good.
And they have 2 this year, right?
They've got, I think they have Mega Man 8 as well.
On a different day, they've got another race.
Yeah, which is weird. They usually put all the Mega Man games in one
block.
there's
like 2 mini blocks this year.
Yeah. I'm trying to find it.
For me, I think probably Pokemon.
That's
2
on
games,
my
1
list.
controller will be my number 1 thing to watch.
Pokemon Red and Yellow, 2 games, 1 controller. One person will be playing both Pokemon games at the same time on 1 controller. It's going to be insane how this is going to work. How will like the RNG work out? Are they going to do RNG manip? I used to run Pokemon Red, so I don't know like how this is going to work. Both Pokemon Red and Yellow go for Nidoran.
Yeah, you probably can't do a RNG manip, at least not
I don't think
easily.
you could, because I think they work different for both games. So I don't.
Right.
It's going to be crazy. But yeah, Dragon Warrior 3, I'm really excited about. Because I love that game. It's
That's
the
my
NES version.
I'll be honest, Warcraft 3 looks very fun to me.
The Warcraft ones are. Someone did the Arthas campaign a few years back. Maybe it was like a year ago. It was a really fun run to watch. A lot of the RTS ones are fun to watch because the people are really knowledgeable, and it's fun to watch how like they usually have like a hand cam on them and stuff. It's fun to see how their hands move and stuff like that, and they talk while they play. They're basically, it's all like super micromanaging in like a split second. Those are always really fun to watch.
I'm sad there are no Soulsborne games, but there have been like I think there's been one practically at like every event for a while, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Kingdom Hearts is back. They usually don't do 2 Kingdom Hearts games and events back to back. Catherine will be interesting. It's 1 player, 2 controllers. The guy Golo2 who runs it is a pretty. I think he's been trying to get Catherine into GDQ for a long time, and he finally got it in.
What is generally the longest they will let someone, or like what is the longest run?
They used to have. I think the longest run they ever did, or at least that I know of, is Final Fantasy IX. Was a 2-day run, and it was like 11 hours.
2 day? Oh.
It wasn't 2 days long total.
Yeah.
But it was they split it up over 2 days. They cut the run in half and did part of it one day and like disc 3 and on the next day.
Interesting.
It was like 10 or 11 hours.
Wow.
And then they had the donation incentive to get Excalibur 2 and stuff like that. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that's another big part of it is they often have incentives for different games, like name someone, do certain part of a run.
Yeah, and that's usually how they raise a lot of their money.
Yeah, save versus kill the animals is always like the biggest thing
for Super Metroid. And Super Metroid this year again, they're not doing a race. They're doing I think 100% map completion. Run.
It used to always be like the last run, just about, right?
Yeah, it was always like the run before last.
Yeah, now they've started moving it around more.
Yep, with last, I don't think it was even in GDQ in the AGDQ. I think they took a break, which has never happened. It's Osten Goes, who's like one of the top.
Oh yeah, wow! They're doing Final Fantasy VI this year. That's estimated 7 hours.
Yeah, they do. That's something I'm kind of disappointed with. Is they lean on Final Fantasy 6 and 4 a lot, and I would like, but because they're more of the shorter. Items. Yeah, and they're more of the shorter ones. It always feels like Puexel's running like this or Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy, or someone's running Final Fantasy 4. I'd like to see them do more like they did Final Fantasy 7 a few years ago. It's like a pretty short run. I think it's only like 3.5 or 4 hours long. Because you'll basically like wrong warp to the end of the game, like towards the beginning of disc 2, I think. But I'd love to see that, but 8 and 9 are just so long, and 10 are just so long of runs. Like 13's been in a few times because it's pretty short.
Yeah.
But who cares about 13?
Yeah.
Sorry. Super Mario Makers, they always do something cool with it. This is probably going to be their big money thing. They're going to.
I think so too, because
Get
it's
on.
a 3v3 blind race.
Yeah,
That's
they've done it
amazing.
twice, and it's been huge both times they've done it.
I assume blind. It's blind levels, so they're not told what levels they're gonna get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't get to
Not
play them.
blindfolded.
No,
which
not
they've
blindfolded.
done.
Yeah.
People have they did a Pokemon blindfold race one year.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Well, they always get they did the blind punch out I think did they do blind punch out 2 games 1 controller? I think they did that last year or AG.
I don't remember if it was blind, but it was 2
Yeah.
games 1 controller.
The Mexican runner always plays Battletoads blind. So that's always the thing. So yeah, that's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to Ocarina of Time. They're doing bingo. I don't know how. I was talking to Mal about this before we started recording. Bingo is usually like a team race or a race dynamic thing where you're competing to get bingo on a board and you have to do certain objectives like collect this heart piece at this location or something like that. So it's kind of like your test of game knowledge and routing and when you can do stuff and trying to like cut off stuff from your opponent and knowing maybe what they've done. So I don't know how it's going to work with one person, but we'll see. Mario Maker is going to be hot because it'll just raise a lot of money. Carl Sagan and Grand Pooh Bear are really big in that community. I think Carl Sagan's like a really big stage maker actually, and they always have really hard stages and crazy stuff. So they'll have some cool donation incentives. I always love the I Am Bread. Watching that big speedrun for some reason. It's one of those dumb like this game's hard to control games. It's just goofy.
That's an interesting game. That's silly.
I'm glad Wind Waker HD is here because I like the runner Linkus, and they get to show off like the big skips. I think he did this game a year and a half ago, and it was like 2 hours longer. They found like barrier skip where you get to skip a really big part of basically like a really important item.
I think generally some of the more entertaining skips are the ones where they kind of end up breaking a lot of the game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
jump through just big sections of and it's always best in like the long adventure games because then it's like a game that should take you potentially 50, 40 hours to complete on like your first run through. They're doing this in like an hour or two. There's something about that just always makes me laugh when they're cutting through so much time on a game.
Dude, it's always funny. Especially if you haven't seen the glitches.
They're running Prey, so that's a game where
That'll
you
be one.
end up glitching out of the
It's probably
station,
like
I
10
believe.
minutes. The world
It's
record
50
there.
minutes actually,
Is
but
that the estimate? Yeah.
yeah. I can't remember. There might be like cut screens and stuff you can't really skip.
I think the only downtime with Prey is that like you can quite literally like break tons with that game to the point where there really isn't a game. It's 15 minutes, mostly unskippable cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it says no OOB.
Out of bounds.
Oh, that's why it's taking 50 minutes. No out of bounds.
Yeah,
What?
That's basically how you skip a lot of the game.
Yeah.
Because I think the record is like 11 or something.
It's
with
really
bounds.
short.
Yeah.
Goof Troop co-op is going to be awesome. I still remember the one player, 2 controllers Goof Troop co-op run, where he basically put both the SNES controllers back to back and then played with his middle fingers
geez.
on one side, his thumbs on one. It was amazing.
That's sick.
That was awesome. Really looking forward to Super Mario 64, which is one of my favorite runs to watch, and they have like the top 2 players in the world racing against each other in 70 Star.
Mm-hmm.
And every time like they have this race, it's always super close, and it's really good. So I'm looking forward to that. And Skyward Sword, but that's super late, so I'll have to like watch the VOD of my favorite Zelda game. Eat it, people. So yeah, there's a Sonic block as always. I don't really like Sonic speedruns personally. Castlevania block looks cool. We get 1, 3 Bloodlines and Circle of the Moon. Just lots of cool stuff in here.
Oh, the Monkey Ball games are always
Monkey Ball's awesome.
One of my favorites to watch.
Those games are supposed to be really, really hard to speedrun.
Yeah.
Like insane. They're like supposed to be like some of the hardest games to speedrun. Weirdly enough.
They are quite entertaining. Sometimes it's like, because it's like you manipulate the ground, so sometimes you can just like smack the ball and try and hit it across the map.
Yeah, and it's
get
like,
it into the
oh, I
hole.
have to land here. Oh.
Yep.
It's like playing golf, basically.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I'm super excited. I look forward to these events all year. I look forward to this. I look forward to AGDQ, RPG Limit Break. GDQ is going to start doing more stuff too. I think they announced that they were doing like 2 days over TwitchCon. Let's see if I can find the announcement.
Well, they did like spin up one event real quick for the hurricane last year.
Yes, they did. Harvey released, done quick. Yeah, GDQ is to host a speedrunning marathon at TwitchCon. They're calling it GDQ Express. It's taking place over 3 days. So
That's interesting.
yep, they haven't announced who's running, or I think they've just announced. It was basically like a week ago they announced they were doing it. So
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of speedrunners these days are like, they use Twitch as well, so it's a really good partnership.
a lot of them are there.
Yeah, exactly. They're already going to be there.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll already be going on by the time you hear this. Check it out, support them, watch it. It's a good charity and it's lots of fun. And just check out the VODs too. You get to see some of your favorite video games get literally broken wide open. So, yeah. All right, this has been episode 56 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in their own video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings wastes Monday mornings on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Talk day by day on YouTube, with full video releasing on Friday. Check us out on Twitter, Podcast5R, Facebook, P5R Podcast. Check out the various streams, twitch.tv/PSOFlow and Podcast of Five Rings. Let's sign off. Let's go watch some Fully Cooley Season 2, right?
Yeah.
Later.
I'm listening to it right now.
Oh, yeah.